When Bailey came to live with us, my mom split her love in half. Bailey got the bigger half, and I got the smaller one. You still have your dad, she'd say. But Bailey has no one, so she naturally favored her. Later, I decided I didn't want my mom anymore. Unlike my mom, I couldn't divide my love. I gave all my love to my new mom. Mom said she couldn't make it to my parent-teacher conference. Why not? I asked almost in tears. Didn't you promise you'd come? But her voice on the phone was cold. Is a promise a guarantee? Bailey's teacher called, she said. Her conference is at the same time as yours. Bailey, 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 I finally lost it, yelling into the phone. All you care about is Bailey. You haven't come to my conference for 3 years. 3 years passed from elementary to middle school. And now I'm about to enter high school. My middle school parent-teacher conferences, all unattended by my mom. This time, even my usually gentle teacher got serious. Flora, she said, your mom really needs to come. 100 days to go before high school entrance, and you've been slipping. I had told her 5 days ago. I thought she'd finally give it some thought. But again, she chose Bailey. Flora, her voice on the phone was as cold and impatient as ever. Bailey has no parents. Isn't giving her even her aunt enough? But I couldn't speak. Tears were choking me. Bailey's aunt is my mom too. I'm not the reason Bailey's parents aren't around. Why should I lose mine? I handed back the phone to the bookstore owner. He looked at me with curiosity. I pulled out $1 for him. Still had $200 left in my pocket, saved from skipping months of breakfast. Planned to buy some study materials. Luckily, I'd asked my mom the day before. I had time to prepare. I'm going to use this money to hire a mom for the conference. The mom I hired didn't strike me as trustworthy. Heavy makeup, leaning on the school fence counting money, with perfume that was way too strong. Even when the principal came by, she muttered, all the spare change. Really, what a hassle. Of course it's in change. I saved it up bit by bit. She seemed unreliable, and I wanted my money back. Maybe I could find someone else. But she darted away, just out of reach, shaking the money. Okay, got it. 3rd period tomorrow, I'll find you then. 8th grade, class 3, right? Don't wear that makeup tomorrow. Too sketchy. And that's $200. Should I try someone else? But she was gone before I could stop her. Just as I was about to call out to her, here came the principal again. He noticed the money in her hand. Asked me if I was being extorted. No, I replied quickly. That's my mom. She was just giving me change, but I didn't need it. Thank goodness, she ran off quickly. Your name is Jennifer. I made her jot it down on her memo. She said I'm Bella with big wide eyes. She was dressed the same as yesterday. Dramatic makeup, pale foundation, brown leather jacket reeking of cheap perfume. Only when she blinked those fake lashes could you see she had pretty eyes. But her looks didn't move me. My mom's Jennifer, so you're Jennifer too. I mimic my mom's tone when she buys groceries. Professional. Didn't I say no to that makeup? I can't otherwise, she grumbled. Then she smiled. Show me to your class, 8th grade, class 3? Her mouth never stopped on the way. Will your teacher hold me after to scold me? Heads up, those $200 don't cover scolding fees. You should have said so earlier. I halted in the hallway. That's the deal, okay? She said impatiently. All right, let's say I'm doing it for charity, shall we? She spoke so nonchalantly. No need to be so tough, kid. I wasn't being tough, just a little desperate. She didn't know that $200 was everything I had. Couldn't cut into lunch funds for materials. If she added fees, I'd have to use dinner money. But her sudden generosity relieved me. At the classroom door, I awkwardly said, thanks. Yeah, whatever. She waved and started in. Something popped into my head. Bella, I stopped her. I felt my cheeks heat up. Could you do me another favor? She gave me a look that said, don't push it. But I guess I was persistent enough. The words just flowed. In our class, there's Ben and Lily. Could you talk to them and their parents? Say you're my mom and you're aware of what they've done to me. If they try it again, you won't hold back. Bella cursed. I didn't get why she swore. Does that cost extra? How much? I wondered. Before I finished, she cut me off. You're being bullied at school? Her face went dark. With a big wave, she headed inside. That service is free. Bella wasn't professional at all. During the conference, we all waited outside. I watched her rummage through my desk. Teacher glanced her way a few times, but she kept flipping through pages, ignoring everything. The more she rifled, the madder her expression got. I kept asking myself if hiring her was the right call. That doubt was strongest when I saw Demi from next door come out. Demi introduced me to the idea of hiring parents. She struggled in class, but was scared of her strict family. She hired a fake parent for her conference, even left the teacher with a fake parent's number. She looked through the glass at my seat too. This is who you hired. Just look at them. Maybe they're worth 50 or 60 bucks tops. 50 or 60. I stood there shocked. Don't tell me you paid her 100. Demi was startled. Even adding in phone answering duties and parent-teacher conference stints combined, I only get paid 80 bucks. The conference ended. Before Bella rushed to confront Ben and Lily, I was thinking, at least get back 100 bucks. But as she went to reason with those kids' parents, I figured 80 would be fine. Especially when Ben's parent, towering and big, wanted to argue. Bella quickly shut them down with her sharp words, book in hand. The classroom was buzzing. Her loud voice drew onlookers. The two parents were embarrassed and hurriedly took off with their kids. Bella walked out triumphantly. Hold up, I said. The teacher will probably want to talk to us in a bit. Stick around until it's all sorted before heading out. I didn't ask her for a refund straight away. I wasn't stupid. What if she didn't cooperate when the teacher spoke with us? Those parents were probably scolding their kids by now. The homeroom teacher was busy with other parents. So Bella and I chatted in the hallway. But they'll hold a grudge and bully you again. She pushed. Want to hire me to scare them off again? Just 30 bucks a pop. I remembered how fierce she looked earlier. Ben and Lily were definitely scared. No way they'd mess with me again. She was probably looking to squeeze more money from me. I knew, but to make sure she'd perform well later, I had to nod in agreement. See, she snapped her fingers. Good deal, right? What a joke. The wait wasn't long. Soon enough, the teacher stepped out. Seeing Bella, she frowned slightly and asked, Flora's parent? She straightened up. Yes, teacher, I'm Jennifer. The teacher gave her a curious look. Let's go to my office and talk about Flora. All right. Bella eagerly dashed into the classroom, grabbing my books and notes. I had a hunch about what Bella was going to discuss with the teacher. I was even kind of looking forward to it. As Flora's parent, remember that a child's education isn't just the school's responsibility. Since Flora joined our class, I've never seen you, though I get that you're busy. She glanced at Bella's attire. But the drop in her grades is severe from top 10 to outside the top 100. Aren't you concerned? Bella shrugged. The teacher thought she was being defiant, ready to say more. But Bella flipped open my books. I might not be attentive to Flora, but her grades dropping isn't related to that. The teacher stared at her, likely shocked at such an irresponsible parent. But Bella tapped a page. Did Flora tell you? About the bullying she faced. It was the most effaced page in those marked-up pages. Every blank space and between lines with formulas were filled with insults. Slut, who are you trying to seduce? Aren't you shameless? Bella read off each phrase. This is just one page. Teacher, did Flora show you any of this? Getting insulted like this and not breaking down? Not affecting her studies? How tough do you think she has to be? The teacher clearly missed it. When I found her, and told her I was being verbally abused/bullied. I showed her these pages. She'd seen them, but her response was light. All right, I'll have a word with them at some point. Busy day. Can't you just get along with classmates? Why make it so complicated? Now she was at a loss for words. After a pause, she finally asked you, weren't you just? Clearly, she noticed Bella demanding answers earlier from those two parents. Bella cut her off. Yes, I just did something any mom would do. But, teacher you? Did you do what a teacher should? Her fingers drummed on the book. If you had, we wouldn't need to chat specifically. She'd have adjusted herself emotionally, maybe be top of the school again. After leaving the teacher's office, I debated if I should ask for part of my money back. Bella had done better than expected, but it was expensive. $100 would help me get by way better. She walked on mumbling, not noticing my dilemma. Your books are trashed by a new set. They wouldn't dare to face those. What kind of teacher is your homeroom teacher? Isn't she responsible for anything? I said nothing. She wasn't entirely neglectful. She helped others being bullied. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reached out to her initially. After pestering her, she relented to help. But in the end, she just vaguely mentioned it in a class meeting. Right after, Lily cornered me in the restroom. Little snitch. Learn to tell. I wondered why help others, yet be so indifferent to me. Maybe because my grades slipped too much. She didn't like me. She often wanted to meet my parents. They never came. In her mind, maybe I was an abandoned kid, a kid not handled by their parents, so not by her either. So Bella suddenly asked, "Your mom's never attended a parent-teacher meeting. Your mom dead?" I didn't get a chance to reply because in the next moment, someone was pulling my sleeve. "Hey, Flora." Bailey shot me a smug smile.
Who is she anyway?
Why are you hanging out with such flashy people? And why did she say something bad about my aunt? Slap. My cheek burned with sudden pain. My ears rang. My mom, who's done physical labor, hit me hard. It'll take me a while to recover from that. Auntie, Bailey called softly. Don't stop me, no, me. Mom pulled me back, making me stumble. She glanced at the teacher apologetically and said with a smile, "I'm really sorry, teacher. This kid has always been rambunctious." I didn't expect her to be hanging out with outsiders and causing trouble like this. "What are you doing?" Bella finally reacted and tried to intervene, but my mom pushed her aside before she could get close. Bella, with her small frame, couldn't stand a chance against my mom's loud, harsh words. My mom yelled at her, pointing accusatorily, "I'm disciplining my daughter. Who are you to interfere? You wait, I'll call the police and charge you with fraud. How much have you scammed from Flora?" She then glared at me. "Where did you get the money? Our family barely gets by, and you're hiring someone to act as your parent? Where did you get the extra money? Are you doing indecent things?" I couldn't take it anymore. I stayed dry-eyed after her slap, but seeing Bailey standing there arms crossed, watching me without a hint of empathy, that was too much. I finally started crying, feeling ashamed. My mom used the harshest words on me. Meanwhile, the little darling she adored just stood by, as if I didn't even matter. They had found out Bella was a hired parent. My mom had dragged me to the teacher's office. Bella had even let out a snort of laughter. "So your mom's not dead." How that made my mom angrier. She yelled about calling the cops and having Bella arrested. "Go ahead." Bella yelled back, "Call them, and show them what a mother you are. You don't even know your kid's being bullied, and you call yourself a teacher, letting this bullying happen on your watch. It's despicable. I worked for that $200 and suffered emotional damage. You act like you're dead, not showing up for your daughter's class meeting. Is it not okay for her to get someone else to show up?" The teacher quickly said, "We shouldn't call the cops. Flora, look at who you hang out with. How could she say that about your aunt?" In the midst of the chaos, Bailey shouted again, trying to shift the blame back onto me. My mom, of course, took the bait. "She cares." Does she? This is probably what she wants to say. My mom turned suddenly to grab my hair. "No one bullies others, only you? Why are you like this? Gnome is at the same school as you, and she's a year younger. Why isn't she bullied, but you are? Running around with these kinds of people, no wonder you're being bullied. Do teachers owe you anything? You don't learn well. And it's the teacher's fault? You piece of..." Bella cut her off. "You can spare time for your niece's meeting, but not for your own daughters? Is this niece your secret child or something?" She moved to free my hair. "Let her go, you piece of..." I had felt hopeless when my mom called me trash, interrogating why no one else gets bullied like me. Even the teacher looked at me with pity, but when Bella came up and pulled at my hair, somehow I found strength. It was like all the pent-up frustration finally had a way out. When my mom raised her hand to slap Bella, I gave her a hard shove. Even as big as she was, she stumbled back.
"Auntie."
Bailey rushed to catch her. "Enough." I yelled, my scalp aching. "What do you guys want? Keep fighting. Keep it up until security comes." Call the cops now. You've lost it? Mom stared at me, stunned. No wonder. She's seen me in every way possible. Sullen, insecure, longing for a touch of motherly love, but me being loud, argumentative, that disappeared when Bailey came into our lives. The room went silent. My mom looked at me, shocked and hurt. What has she heard about? I felt a sting in my chest, and through my tears yelled, "You asked why they don't bully anyone else, only me?" Mom, thanks to you. Do you remember when I asked you to buy me a bra? Remember what you said? I had a nickname I hated, Rabbit. Not the cute kind, the kind that jumps. The first time I felt self-conscious was during a gym class where we were practicing a long-distance run. I was in the last group. By the time it was my turn, the finish line was packed with classmates. I focused on the finish line and didn't notice my peers' mocking laughter. And then Ben, someone I barely knew, came up to me, exaggeratedly motioning, "Flora, I'll call you Rabbit, the rabbit that jumps when they run." At first, I didn't get it, but his gaze dropped lower and laughter broke out among them. Suddenly, I realized what he meant and pushed him hard. And bullying started from a simple nickname. The next day, my desk was scribbled with nasty messages. I stood up in the quiet classroom before class, looked around, and met Lily's bold stare matching my gaze. Lillian, sitting next to me, gave my sleeve a gentle tug and whispered, "Lily wrote it." Everyone saw it, but no one dared to say anything. I heard she's with Ben now. She said you tried to flirt with Ben while jogging yesterday. It's not me saying this, but seriously, wear a bra. If her first line left me baffled, the next one had me blushing hard. I am wearing a bra, I explained. Not a tank top. She lowered her voice even more.
A bra?
Tank tops can't hold it up. Didn't your mom teach you this? My face turned even redder. I'll try, I mumbled. Honestly, who can notice body changes faster than yourself? I realized a while back that my tank top was getting tight. I nervously asked my mom if we could buy a padded tank top. But as soon as I mentioned it, she frowned and snapped, "Money, money, money. We only have so much raising 2 kids, and you're still not saving. Do you want us to just live on air? But it's just $10. Tank tops at the wholesale market cost no more than that, and when she says 2, I haven't had any allowance in 6 months beyond lunch money. Before Bailey arrived, I got $10 a week for allowance. Couldn't buy much, but at least spicy strips or noodle snacks weren't out of reach. But after Bailey came, it seemed like Mom forgot about me. She bought Bailey nice clothes and signed her up for classes. I used to have classes too, but that month Dad's paycheck was a bit lower. "Flora, I feel like you've learned how to swim well enough. What if we took a break?"
Give Gnome Gnome a break, she said.
Gnome Gnome just joined our family. Have some empathy for Mom. It's not easy for her. What I didn't know then was that break would last 3 whole years, from tutoring classes, to my room, to my home, and now even my tank top money. Mom never took me to buy a new tank top. So I taught myself to save my breakfast money to buy one. The market lady wouldn't let me try it on, and I had no bargaining skills. The tank top I brought home was a bit small, and when I went back, she wouldn't exchange it. But that's okay, it was better than the old one. But after 3 years, straps loosen, and they can't keep up with a growing body. I thought I needed a new tank top. I didn't realize it was time for a bra. Mom interrupted. "Why didn't you tell me?" She babbled on, trying to cover something up. "Are you blaming me for not noticing your body's changes? But you asked for a tank top. How was I to know you needed a bra? I have a job and take care of both of you. Everyone blames me. But is it easy looking after 2 kids? Is it easy?" I stayed calm, Mom. "I told you, but you must have forgotten. I told you I was being bullied at school, laughed at. You said I was too sensitive. I even asked you to visit school to have my back, but you brushed it off. I told you I needed a bra, and you called me too vain, just caring about appearances instead of studying. You tossed me $100, saying it was more than enough for 3 bras, and to grab them from the market on my way back from school. But when I went back to my room to grab clothes, I accidentally saw Bailey changing. Mom, that well-fitted, probably expensive bra on Bailey, who bought it. Bailey asked why I didn't knock before entering my room. But Mom, Why should I need to knock to enter my own room? Mom, you've always asked me to make way for Bailey. I gave her you, my room, everything. When do you think it'll be enough? Flora, please. Bailey stood beside, tears in her eyes. She probably didn't expect this to backfire on her. Flora, you see me like this? Auntie treats me well because I treat her genuinely. Do you ever care about Auntie? Auntie's getting gray hair. Did you notice? Flora, I don't even have a mom now. Can't Auntie treat me a little better? I didn't care about her much. Mom's biased, yes. But sometimes her points made sense. Flora lost her parents, and that insecurity makes her cling to any warmth. So even when she subtly tried to drive a wedge between my mom and me, but I know what really matters is my dad and mom's actions. Sadly, Dad is hands-off. He occasionally complained about Mom spending too much on Bailey. But if Mom gave him the cold shoulder, he'd just let it slide. And my mom, many times, I wonder if she doesn't just favor Bailey but actually dislikes me. Why else would a mother not like her own kid, but favor someone else's? No matter how indifferent I am to Bailey, she shouldn't be the one to morally judge me. Bailey, in all honesty, was her favoritism ever just a little bit? Our money's tight. It can only cover one person for extra classes. She said, since my grades were fine, why not let you take them? You wanted to learn piano because boarding fees were cheaper. She wanted to put me in boarding school. But you needed security, so you stayed at her house. All these years, 4 parent-teacher meetings a year, she attended yours consistently. Even at the same school, she never came up to see me because she tells her classmates she's your mom. She's scared I'll ruin it or hurt your feelings. Just once if she'd stood up for me even once. Now you're saying I don't care for her?
Tell me.
How can someone who's constantly on edge fearing classmates might bully them ever focus on feeling sorry for her? You tell her what? Mom shielded Bailey. Everyone's done you wrong. How about you think of yourself? Why is everyone against you? Why can't anyone stand you?
I didn't speak.
I knew no matter what I said now, she would never realize her mistakes. In the 4 years, she never realized. Who'd have thought someone actually stood up for me? Are you even a mother? Bella kicked my mom in the shin. The office erupted into gasps. My mom, finding a sudden outlet for her anger, slapped back. Call someone. Call someone. The homeroom teacher frantically made a call. If security can't handle it, get the gatekeeper.
Quick.
They're fighting. Eventually, the situation got resolved. The 8th grade headmaster intervened with my mom. Normally, he couldn't have stopped Bella, but when he glanced at her, he hesitated. Bella, he called out. Then Bella suddenly froze up all weird. She dropped her hands from my mom's hair, stood still, eyes down, not saying a word. That is, until the headmaster called her name again. Teacher Peter, she mumbled, so softly it was barely audible. My mom wanted to say something, acting all high and mighty for a split second, but then held back when Bailey tugged at her sleeve. It made sense. She could throw tantrums in front of my homeroom teacher without restraint, but couldn't afford to ruin her image in front of Bailey's headmaster. Just like that, Bailey dared to claim she wasn't biased. My mom had planned to call the cops. She said she was just disciplining her daughter, but Bella attacked her. You call them, I'll call them too, I said. I'll report you for domestic violence. You're siding with them? My mom wailed. How could you betray me like this? Of course, the school wouldn't let them call the cops. After much back and forth, things were swept under the rug. Flora, no matter the reason, you lied to the school and your parents. The facts are the facts. We're recommending a 7-day suspension. Go home and reflect, the headmaster said. My mom took me away. She walked up front, arm in arm with Bailey, chatting and laughing. As I stepped out the door, I glanced back. Bella stood beside the headmaster, tears welling in her eyes. Those 7 days were rough. Throwing a fit or whining wasn't an option for me to get my parents' attention. Back home, it was like I was invisible. As soon as my mom got in, she headed straight to the bedroom. Naturally, Bailey followed right behind. Soon, I heard my mom sobbing inside. How did I end up with a kid like this? She cried. I moved my stuff to the study, but hadn't even unpacked my books when Bailey barged in. With a stern face, she said, Don't stay in here. I'll swap out the bedding in my room, and you can stay there. You're the rightful owner of this house.
Why?
My mom rushed over after hearing the commotion. Is crying supposed to make everything right? Bailey, don't give in. I still have a say in this house. That's when Dad came home. He arrives pretty late, looking exhausted, and opened the door with an irritated motion. Arguing. What are you arguing about? Can I ever catch a break? Then he saw me standing in the middle of the study, looking indifferent. Flora, can you just be reasonable? Every weekend you're back. It's just more fighting. Can't we just enjoy our time? See, this is why I don't turn to Dad when Mom treats me like this. They are alike. One favors the other, while the other ignores everyone as long as things appear fine. I'm tired. Can't they stop causing me trouble? To me, is one of them even slightly better? No, they're just as bad. Equally lousy at being parents. Equally unqualified. What kind of look is that? My mom snapped again. Fine. You say I'm biased? I'll show you what real bias is. Bailey, she continued with the deliberate tone, don't interact with her for the next few days. If these 7 days don't make her see her mistake, I'll make sure she does. She aimed to show me what true favoritism was like, but how bad could it get? Worse than now, what stopped feeding me? Ignore me? Kick me out? Could it really be more extreme? No, I won't allow it anymore. I won't allow myself to feel this way. I won't allow myself to feel like a guest in my own home, or beg for my mom's love like a puppy. I won't allow myself to feel like a beggar, hoping she'll attend a parent-teacher meeting, only to be flat-out rejected. I grabbed the backpack I'd just set on the desk. What are you doing? My mom exclaimed, what do you think you're doing? You trying to fly away or something? Dad grabbed me as I tried to leave. Where do you think you're going? His grip felt like iron clamps on my wrist getting tighter. Aren't you too old for these childish antics? Your mom just said a few things. She's your mother. I eat and drink well. Shut up. My dad cut off my mom. I saw tears welling in my already swollen eyes. When do you ever take charge? Now I can't say a word to her.
You've always made me play the bad guy.
You just want a spare room, don't you? Dad looked down slightly from now on. You and Bailey will take turns with the spare room.
To be fair. Fair.
So he knew about fairness. So he knew they were being unfair to me. Dad, do you think I only resent Mom's favoritism? Do you think today was all her bias? Am I causing a scene? Can you stop just trying to keep the peace? How come now you want to handle things fairly but not back then? Bailey still has grandmas, doesn't she? Is she only left with you two, her uncle and aunt? Is that why you adopted her? Are you taking care of your own kid before rushing to raise someone else's? Even if you adopted her, was there only one room in our home? Isn't the study supposed to be a guest room for her? Why let her encroach on my space? Haven't I already told you I don't like sharing my room or my parents? And what do you say then? You say, stop it. Your mom giving me a headache is enough. So now you're upset I'm making a fuss. Why am I causing trouble now? Because I couldn't before. Now you're upset I'm making you face the problem, but you've never tried dealing with any problems before. Enough. Mom slammed a mug down on the table. You've blamed me, then blamed your dad. And now Bailey. But when you weren't here, the three of us had a fine life. I didn't have you to blame me. If you're so unhappy with this family, then all right. I shook off my dad's hand and bolted out of there. The moment I opened the door, the cold hit me. I left without grabbing my scarf and gloves. I wasn't planning to go back for them. Behind me, my mom yelled, go away. If you leave, don't ever come back. You heartless thing. Dad called my name a couple of times too, but slowly their voices faded. Even in the city, winter nights feel especially cold and lonely. The stores next door were open, their lights, whether dim or bright, spilled out, but there were hardly any customers. I had nowhere to go. School's on break today, and I can't return home. Even if I could, I'm supposed to reflect on my actions for 7 days. Even if I got into school, they'd kick me out. I've only got $20 on me. Grandma's place is in another city. Granny and family would just side with Mom and say I'm being unreasonable. passing store after store, all closed for the night. I walked a long way before reluctantly ducking into a 24-hour fast food joint. $20 might only get me a cup of coffee here, but thinking about tomorrow and the day after, I bit the bullet, sat down, and shook my head when the server asked if I wanted to order something. After a while, I calmed down, took a book out of my bag, and started doing homework. A long time passed until I heard someone tapping on the table. Looking up, I saw a bent, slightly rough finger. Following up the arm, I found a lively face and a pair of bright eyes. "Well, did you get kicked out?"
she asked.
Seeing my dazed, bleary expression, she said, "Don't recognize me? Bella, the parent you hired. With her dress like this. No wonder I didn't recognize her." Bella's usual leather jacket must have been tossed somewhere. She was wearing the restaurant's uniform and without makeup. She looked just like a college student working while studying. No, maybe even younger than your average college student. I got it. No wonder she insisted on wearing makeup to my last parent-teacher meeting. Without it, anyone could see how young she was. "Planning to spend the night here?" she asked. I kept silent. At school, she'd stood up for me, sure. But I still remembered that time she asked for $200 to attend my parent-teacher meeting. "I'll let you stay tonight," she said. "I'm off now, just gonna change. Are you coming or what?" I hesitated, gripping my pencil tightly. She quickly gathered her things and headed for the door. She turned and looked back at me one last time. "Coming? If not, I'm leaving." The other servers glanced our way. "And what exactly do you do?" My suspicion flared a bit. "Does Teacher Peter know you?" "Huh," she chuckled. "I'm here to kidnap kids. You coming or not?" Bella's place was small and run down, and it didn't have any heating, but it was clean and tidy. Seeing my expression, she smiled. "Don't mind it if you don't like it. I can drop you back at the restaurant." I didn't reply, eyes landing on a battered desk with peeling paint. On the desk was a loan book and exam prep guide. "You're a high school student?" I asked. "Taking orders while in high school?" She fluffed the covers. "It's cold in here. I'm getting ready to sleep. What about you?" "Me too." "All right, hop in first and warm the bed for me." I blinked. "You're doing okay in your studies." I heard her mumble when I was half asleep. "Your old grades." I admit I've slipped, but my old grades were just okay. Thinking that, I voiced my thoughts aloud. "My grades were better," she said. "Back then, I was top of the whole school from Class 8, Grade 3. I understood Class 8, Grade 3 was always the top class. No wonder Teacher Peter knew her. The top of the school's pictures would be on the photo wall. Every teacher would remember, but seeing the former top student back in school, up to no good. Teacher Peter must be furious. He might even have scolded her, which would explain why her eyes were red back then. I wanted to ask what she was up to now. She seemed like a college student, but what college student studies high school entrance exam materials? "Me," she said. "I don't study anymore. I got into high school but didn't go." "Why didn't you go?" "Because my family favors boys over girls. So lending you a hand feels like helping a kindred spirit." Not really, your folks are bigger jerks than mine." When I thought Bella was some regular working adult, I felt wary of her. But realizing she's just a dropout trying hard to study, my wariness melted away. "Student," she ruffled my hair. "I'm 5 years older than you. An adult. A working adult." When dawn broke, she got dressed quickly and told me I could sleep in. "I'm heading out. If you leave, remember to lock the door." I left a key in the drawer. I knew why she'd be leaving so early. She mentioned juggling 3 jobs, one at the electronics factory, another at the restaurant, and freelancing for gigs like pretending to be a parent or being a cat sitter. "If you can go to school, who wouldn't want to?" A former top student said to me gruffly. "Yesterday was emotional." I realize I'm still a bit tired. So, after she quietly closed the door, I fell back into a deep sleep. Honestly, I still had a lot to ask her. What did Teacher Peter tell her after we left? Was she upset over losing a teacher's respect? Why was she working so hard for money? If she'd said she'd only take me in for a day, why did it seem like she wasn't rushing me to leave? But she was in a hurry. The sound of knocking woke me up. The knocks on the door were short and urgent. Open up. Don't pretend you're not home. I know you're in there. The wailing from outside was as clear as day. You ungrateful child. Made your money and forgot about your parents. Oh God, look at this ungrateful daughter. We worked so hard to raise you. And now you won't take care of your parents. There were chaotic sounds from outside. Seemed like some people gathered to watch. Who's outside? Are they looking for Bella? I slowly got dressed, trying to get closer to the door for a peek. But while I was getting dressed, I heard banging on the door. Just as the door was forced open, my shoes were finally on. We locked eyes. He was a burly man, probably in his 50s. Behind him was a woman of the same age, probably his wife. She was the one hurling insults earlier. The last person to come in was a man in his 30s, not very strong-looking. The 50-year-old man's eyes showed a hint of guilt.
Who are you?
Where's Bella? His wife quickly put on a flattering expression. Sorry, did we get the wrong place? We heard Bella lives here. She's our daughter. There's no Bella here, I said. You've got the wrong person. The man put on an awkward smile. The three of them started to back away, sorry about the door, meaning they weren't going to pay for it. Of course, I'm not going to ask them to. With the way things were, it's best if they just left quickly. I held my breath, waiting for them to leave. But unexpectedly, the 30-year-old guy suddenly stepped back. Then he flipped open a workbook on the table. Bella, Dad, Mom, this is Bella's place. What is a home anyway? I wondered, sitting in the police station, is it a place where my mom and dad and Bailey, the three of them eat together with dim lights and a cozy vibe? Is it in a small village not far from the city, where Bella was locked up for over 10 days, just so she'd miss high school enrollment? What's a home really? Not far away. That couple was carefully checking their 30-year-old son's arm, blowing on it, and worriedly asking if it hurt. I thought that's a home. That's Bella's brother's home, Bailey's home, but not mine or hers. So when the cops asked for my name, I refused to give it. Look, kid, the cop was a bit at a loss. From what you've told me, this isn't mainly your fault. Just tell me your name and your parents' contact info, and we'll get someone to pick you up so you can go home. I stayed silent, but if you refused to cooperate, I wound up at the station, but I really didn't want my parents to know. They just complain about me being a worry and act like, see, you said we're biased. Yet when trouble hits, who do you turn to? Maybe even Bailey would have a smug look. Even though all I did was try to protect Bella's stuff. This morning, once they confirmed that this room was Bella's, they just started smashing her stuff. Then they turned her bed inside out. When they found an Anna card, and I realized they were trying to pocket it, I instinctively dove and bit the man's hand. I didn't hold back, and he reflexively flung his arm. Thief, I shouted while grabbing the card, running and yelling to the people outside, call the police. It's a break-in robbery. At the police station, everyone stuck to their story. I said I suspected them of breaking in. They claimed I was the thief. Why else would a stranger be in their daughter's room? And when the cop asked for my name, I still wouldn't say. My silence only ended when Bella showed up. She glanced at the family of three, then at me. Would she think I meddled too much? Luckily, she walked towards me. Her name is Flora. She said she's my sister, staying temporarily in my rental. And I am the one whose rental got broken into. They are my parents and brother. With that, nobody really needed to stay at the station any longer. That family, as arrogant as they were in the rental, were just as obedient now. But their obedience only lasted until we stepped out of the station. Bella's brother blocked our path. Give me money, he said, eyes fixed on my pocket, looking determined not to leave without cash. I ignored him and slipped the card into Bella's hand. Bella looked at her brother, expressionless. It was the lunchtime rush packed with people. Bella's mom and dad exchanged a glance. Without warning, they sat down, wailing with a country accent, "Oh my God, why did I give birth to such an ungrateful child?" Everyone look. Bella's mom shouted, "My ungrateful daughter, Bella." Don't bother crying, Bella said. There's no need to shout. I'm not affluent, and I won't give you any money. Just as her mom was about to wail again. You cry again, Bella warned. I'll crash my brother's dates, crying that my mom scams people. Her tears always work. Believe me, no good girl would marry into our family. In our village, everyone knows if you have a girl, you're stuck supporting the whole family. I dare you, anyone in town will confirm it. Bella's mom stood up, pointing angrily. I saw you studying. If you don't give me money, I'll come find you during your college entrance exams. She gloated, expecting Bella to yield. Go right ahead. Bella replied, I'm fine with that. Anyway, studying 2 years gives me more chances than cramming in 1. Mom, can't my brother afford that? I heard men can still have babies past 40. I don't care. I won't be getting married anyway. Back at Bella's rental, I wanted to help her fix the door, but she shook her head and waved me off. Get up on the bed. Go, go, it's freezing. If you get frostbite, I'll have to buy you ointment, won't I? I listened, obediently climbing onto the bed. At the doorway, Bella, worried about dirtying her coat, just wore a thin sweater. She was shivering while putting the hinge together. Luckily, it can be fixed, she said. Otherwise, the landlord will take more money from me. The landlord's unfair?
Why not move out then?
Are you crazy? He's unfair, sure, but this place is the cheapest around. When I'm bored, I help Bella check the answers on the worksheets she completed. The error rate is quite high. Pretty impressive how that day, Bella managed to fix the door before dark. While lying in bed, she whispered, Hey, thanks. Thank me, but still call me, hey.
I have 40,000 yuan in my account, she said.
It's all my savings from working. It's for college tuition. Flora, she seemed to know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a choice back then. You can hate your mom or dad, but don't cut ties now, and don't drop out of school. Life after dropping out is tough. 7 days flew by. On the 7th day, Bella went to work, and I went to school. She stuffed 200 yuan into my hand. It was the same small change I'd given her before. Scram, she said. Don't come back. I looked at the money in my hand. Don't want it. If you don't want it, give it back. She said. I took it. I hastily shoved the money into my pocket. I'm leaving. I'll visit you over the weekend.
Get lost, she said.
Don't come back. Much later. Bella told me she had prepared herself to never see me again. After all, I was a smart kid. If she advised me to go home and apologize to my parents, I'd likely do it. So it was surprising for her to see me again so soon. The moment I arrived at the school gate, my parents rushed out. Where have you been? My mom pushed me hard and then pulled me into her arms. Flora, you heartless child. Are you beyond getting scolded or hit now? Where have you been? It was the first time Dad showed up at my school. He lowered his head, avoiding the curious glances from my classmates. All right, I used to wonder, with Bailey around, my mom's favoritism and my dad's neglect, how could I ever make them care about me? At first, I didn't completely lose to Bailey. The day Bailey came, I had a mild cold. I lay on my freshly made bed, sulking, Mom, I want to sleep in my bed. I'm not used to this one. Mom, I feel so awful, Mom. I was calling for her, sobbing softly. I had a fever of 100.4 F, not terribly high. But Mom was worried. Dad went to pick up Bailey. She stayed by my bedside, never leaving. But later, she became more and more biased toward Bailey. Bailey would cry when she saw my favorite cola chicken wings. She'd say her mom used to make them too, to avoid reminding Bailey of her lost mom. Mine stopped making cola chicken wings for me. If Bailey saw Mom hugging me close, she'd go quiet. Eventually, Mom rarely showed affection for me in front of her. I often thought, should I hurt myself too? Should I try different methods like Bailey to get Mom's attention? Would that make her care about me again? One night, I showered with cold water for a long time, I got a high fever, and Mom was worried. But the next day, Bailey got hurt too. Mom took her to the hospital, and I thought, why? Why do I have to fight so hard for the motherly love that should be mine? Now, long after I stopped hurting myself on purpose, I finally understand that's how it is. The old saying is right. The one who cries gets the milk. Unfortunately, I'm no longer a child and I don't need the milk. Before, any bit of affection from her would make me forget everything that happened, but today I'm not affected at all. Mom said she'd call the police. She said she couldn't see signs of wandering on me. I must have had a place to go those 7 days. She wanted to call the cops and investigate who abducted me. You're only saying that because you guessed, right? I asked her. Dad told her to stop. It was embarrassing. But she didn't care and dragged me to my grade 8 teacher, Teacher Peter. She didn't care about appearances anymore. She asked Teacher Peter for Bella's contact info. When Bella showed up, she looked at me helplessly. You little rascal. You sure know how to stir up trouble. I felt embarrassed. Teacher Peter assured my mom that Bella is a good kid and had no intention of abducting me. When Mom saw Bella, she paused and said, "A good kid. Good kids don't wear makeup like that. Speak up. Was little Flora led astray by you?" "My kid?" I interrupted. "I'm your kid? What do you mean she abducted me? There's a limit to false accusations, right?" I said, "Mom, I do want to go home, but is there a place for me there?" "What do you mean there's no place for you? I thought you had just one daughter." I asked, "Isn't there already a daughter in your house?" "Mom, it's class time. Do you know how many people will eavesdrop with your loud voice? Do you know after you leave the school? Classmates might say I got bad from hanging out with people outside. Aren't you worried I'll keep being bullied?" Mom's face turned red. "You learn from others but won't let me talk about it this time." I didn't wait for Bella to speak. Maybe my mom was right. I did learn something from Bella, but I learned how to deal with her. "Since you've done it, don't be afraid to talk," I said. "Mom, let's chat outside Bailey's classroom. It's crowded there. We can talk about how Bailey's mom shows up for every open house, but she's actually her aunt. Her aunt has a daughter in 8th grade upstairs, but she's never attended a single open house for her own. We can talk about how Bailey gets all sorts of tutoring every year, while Flora has to skimp and save for a set of materials during her boarding school weekends. Let's talk about it." By 6th grade, Bailey was already wearing expensive, well-fitting underwear, but Flora was in 7th or 8th grade and still got teased with the nickname Rabbit. "Mom, didn't you think all this was normal back then? Let me ask you, would you dare to say these things at the door of Bailey's class?" Mom was furious, mad at you. "Mom, let's go and say it." Bella's parents and brother were a family, and to keep them in check, they needed to have something to lose. Bella's brother was like that precious porcelain you couldn't risk breaking. It's the same with my parents and Bailey. Dad yanked on Mom. "Is this how you treat Flora?" "Stop pretending, Dad. You saw how Mom treated me. You weren't blind, were you? From now on, don't deposit my living expenses in Mom's account. Just give the money to me," I told my dad. "If you don't, I'll come to your office and get it. After all, everyone has their weak spot, right?" My parents left. So did Bella. I told her I'd find her when I'm free. "Why look for me?" She mumbled, "Aren't all your problems solved?" My homeroom teacher said I was really something. It was the first time I saw a teacher swearing at me. She said class 8 of the 3rd year was too small to accommodate someone like me. I simply moved my desk and chair out. As I moved them, Lily and Ben stole a glance at me. When they saw me looking, they quickly looked away. Guess my craziness had spread among my classmates. I went room to room, asking if any class would take me in. If no one agreed, I'd just ask again, why not? The school wasn't going to expel me when you stopped caring. Even the air you breathe seems fresher. Finally, it was the great head teacher, Peter, who found me a class to be in. "Thanks to your good grades," he said. I knew he had once really liked Bella as a student. When Bella couldn't go to high school despite her great exam results, it was always a regret for him. "There are all sorts of parents," he said, "but no matter your family situation, never give up on yourself." "Of course," I replied. Dad, following my instructions, started giving me the money directly every month. Funny enough, I lived even more comfortably than before. I heard that Mom kept signing Bailey up for tutoring and extracurricular classes. But all of that had nothing to do with me now. There was just this one time when my dad was late giving me the money. I went to find him at his office. He came down and took me to the nearby KFC, ordering a whole family bucket for me. "Flora," he said, "if I cut you off, would you never look for us again?" I looked at the bucket, Dad. "I haven't had a family bucket in a long time. When I was little, you said it wasn't healthy and didn't let me eat it, promising I could eat as much as I want when I grew up. I loved family buckets back then. I couldn't wait to grow up. If I liked it too much, you'd occasionally let me have some once every 6 months or so. Then Bailey came, with her piano and dance classes. She had to manage her figure, so no fried food. Mom said if I ate, Bailey would want some too. So Mom didn't let me have any. Let's see. How many years has it been since Bailey joined our family? Why didn't you tell me? Dad asked again. Think about it, Dad. Did I really never tell you any of this? He paused, realizing he'd ignored too many of my words. I never told you, I said with a bitter smile. In life, there are too many things like this. For such a small matter, I didn't feel it was necessary to tell them. I saw Dad's eyes reddening. Dad, I said, now that I'm grown up, can I have all the family buckets I want? He ordered several more than I could ever eat. I suddenly realized evoking their remorse wasn't all that hard. No, it wasn't remorse. It was regret. When they realized they might lose me for good, they began to regret it. At least Dad regretted it. I took this month's living expenses from Dad. But Dad, I stopped liking family buckets a long time ago. On weekends, I often went to see Bella. You're so annoying, sis, she sighed. I have work while you get to chill. Can I join you at work? I asked, take me with you? Who would dare take you? You're under 18. But occasionally, she would take me along. When she worked at the tea shop, I'd sit in a corner, quietly reading. When she handed out flyers, I'd grab a stack and rush to pass them out at the next intersection. Can't you focus on your studies? She scolded slightly. Aren't your exams coming up? In June, Bella had her university entrance exams. I was on break. She didn't let me buy a bouquet, so I brought a bottle of water waiting outside her exam hall. It turned out everyone was handing out bottled water. I watched her finish one exam after another. When they were all over, I finally asked her, how do you do? I'm heading to the top university, she replied. God has set a good example for you. So I asked softly, can you cheer for me at my exams? Before my exams, Dad visited my school again to bring me the materials I needed. Thanks, I said. Do you have your exam room confirmed? Dad asked, how about your mom and I take you tomorrow? No need, I replied. Any time is fine, but let's not mess up my exam tomorrow, okay? After finishing my first exam, I spotted Bella immediately. After the last test, she stood outside, holding the biggest bouquet. Bella skipped work to be there just for me. No way I'd work, she declared. Your little mess of an exam beats money, any day. That year, both Bella and I ended up where we wanted to be. Bella moved to another city. Before she left, she straightened my collar and said, little girl, I'm going to fly now. You work hard to soar higher, too. In high school, I barely had time to think about that family of 3. It wasn't until some middle school friends who knew about back then casually mentioned it to me. They said Bailey's extracurricular classes weren't renewed. She complained to her friends, saying my parents are saving for my college, so they've cut back on my expenses. In the last month before college entrance exams, I went to get my allowance from Dad and told him, you don't need to give me pocket money anymore. He looked a bit lost. 3 years later, his hair was noticeably whiter. I had turned 18. I said, you don't have the obligation to support me anymore. After the exams, I'll apply for scholarships and work-study programs. You two aren't at retirement age, so don't come looking for me, okay? I added, the pension will be split between Bailey and me. I'm not like you guys. I'm super fair. The day before the college entrance exam, Bella called, insisting on seeing a picture of my admission card. Why? I asked. You're not planning to come see me take the test, are you? Are you crazy? She typed on her side. Are you out of your mind? I have to work, make money too. Then video call me. She didn't reply after that. When I finished my first exam, I saw her outside the test center, dressed in a cheapao. Among all the moms in Kipeos, she stood out, looking so young and beautiful. Didn't you say you wouldn't come? Come on. Why are you crying? She wiped my tears away. You have another exam in the afternoon. If I knew you'd cry, I would have waited till the last one to surprise you. She was there at the last exam too, wearing a light blue cheapao. She stood gracefully. A classmate's mom asked her, are you Flora's sister? Oh, your Flora has such good grades. She's bound for Tsinghua or Peking University, right? She's not, I chimed in. She's my mom. 3 years later, Bella got married. She didn't invite her parents. Her groom asked if she'd want me as her bridesmaid. Bella said, no, I want her sitting with my family giving a speech. At the wedding rehearsal, I recited a speech. Thanks for that day when we met, Bella. A couple $100 and you became my pretend mom. How's that, Bella? Perfect, Bella said. You who were once trapped with no way out, broke free from the house of Anna. I once ignored, received all the affection. We were both gonna be happy, all right? Epilogue. Flora got married at 25. The wedding took place in Los Angeles. From back home, Flora only informed a few high school friends. Somehow her parents still found out. That day, as Flora watched the team set up the wedding venue, her phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the caller ID, a number she would see during special occasions. Flora rarely answered, and even when she did, she wouldn't say much, just silence until they hung up. This time was no different. But from the other end came a familiar, yet slightly aged voice. It was her mom. Flora, she said over the phone. We've arrived in Los Angeles at the airport now, and we're not sure how to get to you. Flora thought for a moment and then called her fiancé, Brian. Are you free now? Can you pick up a couple of people for me? Bella had no reaction to Flora's parents coming, just cursing whoever let it slip. Bella's husband, on the other hand, seemed relieved. Good thing your parents are here. I'd hate for Anna to be grown and ready to marry before I've let her go. Bella was so mad, she stomped on his foot. Can you not be such a smart mouth? Anna, Bella's daughter, was the flower girl at Flora's wedding. Flora wanted to laugh, but held it in. Brian took the parents to a cafe. It was a place Flora arranged. She didn't want them at the wedding or visiting the venue. After Brian arrived, Flora quickly handed wedding arrangements over to Bella and headed to the cafe. Before leaving, Bella worried Flora might get hit again. Flora waved it off, saying, she's too old to have that bad of a temper. Besides, Brian will be there. Right, she is quite old. When Flora pushed open the cafe door, she saw the three of them sitting in one corner. They were about to get married. Yet this was Brian's first meeting with their parents. Even aware of Flora's rocky relationship with them, Brian was visibly on edge, sitting there like a school kid. Sitting beside him, Flora asked, why'd you come? They hadn't seen each other in ages. The last time was when Flora graduated college. She had some free time and visited her grandma. The old lady, knowing their family issues, insisted on calling her parents. But when they arrived, not a word was exchanged. Flora just had a meal and left quickly. Now they looked the same, like blurred faces from her past. The kind you wouldn't call for help even during hard times. We just wanted to see you, Matt spoke up. It was strange. Her dad originally turned a blind eye to their household's favoritism. But after Flora fell out with Jennifer, he tried to mediate between them. He assumed Flora would still talk to him after ignoring Jennifer, never considering why. Once Flora stopped taking allowances, she ignored him too. He was just being all emotional. Flora, I missed your teenage years. But I can't miss your wedding. If no one told us you're getting married tomorrow, who's going to walk you down the aisle? We'll take the parent seats. They talk like Flora can't get married without them. Flora gave a cold laugh, ignoring their words, and asked, it's a long way from home to Los Angeles. Are you and Bailey okay being here on your own? The name Bailey has been a sore spot for years. Flora knew why she cut ties with them. They did too. So during today's meeting, they didn't mention Bailey at all. But Flora didn't mind bringing her up. Flora was determined to rip off that band-aid. You're not my parents. You're Bailey's parents. If you want to attend a wedding, feel free to go to Bailey's. Flora was not one for mercy. I didn't have you there for my high school entrance exam or my college one. She continued, you don't think I'd suddenly need you at my wedding, do you? Flora had come apart from her parents. But that didn't mean she lost touch with everyone else. Family, old classmates, even teachers, they all told her to let it go. But how can you just let it go? Why should she? Matt clearly misunderstood. Bailey, we haven't been in touch with Bailey for ages. Flora, when we realized you were bothered by Bailey's presence, We thought about sending her to her grandmother's. But at the time, Bailey was just entering high school, a critical time for studies, critical time for studies. Flora wanted to laugh. She wanted to say it was also a critical time for her studies too. He went on, but we stopped all those classes for Bailey. Flora, we were ready to give you all our love again back then. But is love that comes too late still love? Does love that she's already moved past still count? Flora was fed up and ready to leave. I'll book you 2 tickets, but that's it. I won't spend another dime on you. Go back, Flora said. Flora, I was sick, Jennifer suddenly said. Flora paused in her movement. Jennifer remembered little Flora used to be such a caring child. One year, when Jennifer caught the flu, Flora didn't even go to school. Instead, she stayed by her side, fetching her water and feeling her forehead, asking if she felt uncomfortable. But that was when Flora was very, very young. Indeed it was. Let Bailey take care of you, Flora said. If you're short on cash, then come to me. You raised her till she was 18. She ought to take care of you. Flora wouldn't let them stay. Even if they said it was about the wedding gift, no way. I booked your ticket for today. Flora rubbed her temples. Please stop bothering me. I'm getting married tomorrow. I don't want to think about you and be upset. Brian had one good trait. He didn't meddle much in Flora's decisions. When Flora stood up, he did too. Flora, Matt called out to her. Maybe Brian can drive you to the airport right now? Oh, and the coffee's on me, she reminded them. Drink up and head home. Brian didn't say much at the cafe, but on the way back, he spoke up. They kept asking how you're doing. Flora remained silent. No biggie, he said softly, holding her hand. I'll support you no matter what. Only then did Flora realize her hand was trembling slightly. Faced with those two, she held it all together. But now she saw the storm of resentment inside her. People always say time will dissolve grudges. How does one dissolve such anger and refusal to accept things? With everything busy with the wedding, on the big day, Flora got no word from her parents. As she made her entrance, guests who weren't at the rehearsal asked who would lead her down the aisle, who would hand her over to the groom. I don't need anyone, Flora replied. I can do it myself. The wedding was perfect. When going through the gifts, Brian found a card, who sent a bank card. Brian was curious. Flora tucked it away. She knew exactly who sent it, and that they hadn't left after all. As she walked the aisle, flower petals at her feet and streamers flying, 2 pairs of eyes watched her silently. But that was no longer her problem. After the wedding, Flora went back home for paperwork. She had a household register, so she didn't need to go home itself and avoided seeing them. Flora checked out the bank card at the ATM. The pen was her birth date, easy guess. It had a full $20,000 in it. 20 grand. Flora remembered Matt lost his job back when she graduated high school. 20 grand wouldn't be small change for them. But Flora thought it over and didn't return the card. They were right. Up until 6th grade, they hadn't been unkind. Flora had it all figured out. She'd deposit $1,000 a month until they hit 60. Then she'd use that money to get them a caregiver. Bella and Flora came back together. On the way, Bella asked Flora if she wanted to reminisce about their youth. Flora shook her head. There wasn't much worth remembering from hers. So, after returning for 3 days, she ended up lounging in the hotel for 2. On the last day, on the way to the train station, Flora suddenly realized she forgot to bring water. So, she pulled over to buy a bottle from a roadside kiosk. A bunch of guys were sitting outside, shirtless, playing cards. One of them noticed Flora walking toward the shop and yelled out, Bailey, Bailey, where have you been? We got a customer. Flora paused for a moment, not really wanting to go in. But there wasn't another shop nearby, so she went in anyway. Inside, she saw a woman in her 30s, a bit overweight, rushing out with a baby in her arms. She was tugging her shirt down as she walked, probably nursing the baby just moments earlier. And her shirt barely covered her belly. Flora stole a glance at the woman's swollen joints and the fine lines around her eyes. Not Bailey, she thought. Flora grabbed 4 bottles of Coke from the shelf and headed to the register. But then the woman suddenly called out, Flora? Flora, is that you? Bailey? Flora tried to find traces of the girl she once knew from the woman's features. How did you end up like this? Bailey should only be 24 now. But she looked nothing like a young woman in her 20s. Flora remembered Bailey in middle school, tall and leggy because of her dance classes, like a proud swan. She had taken both dance and piano lessons and valued her delicate hands and slender figure more than anyone. No wonder Flora didn't recognize her at first. "Want to chat?" Bailey asked. It seemed like everyone thought, after some time had passed, she should have learned to let go, like the past would all just drift away. Nobody remembered that snowy night she had stormed out, or how lonely she felt with all the bright lights around. Nobody remembered her racing toward the finish line, only to be met with mockery from her whole class. Bailey, however, was set on stopping her, holding a baby in one hand while gently tugging on Flora's sleeve with the other. Just one hand. But Flora felt it weighing down like 1,000 pounds. The men playing cards outside were already glancing their way, and her voice, rough and low, said, "We're grown-ups now, Bailey. Our kids will soon be as old as we were then. Is there really anything we can't get past?" Yes, there was. Bailey thought to herself, "I'll never get over it for the rest of my life." She couldn't get past the two people she was most closely related to, let alone someone like Bailey. But Bailey seemed eager to chat, going on and on about her life after Flora left home. Flora, on the other hand, was absently staring at the Coke bottle in her hand. She was so bored, she actually started reading the ingredients. Flora did want to just leave, but seeing those rough guys at the door, she didn't want Bailey to yell after her. With her husband's fierce look, who knows if it would turn into an altercation, Flora thought she'd wait for Brian and Bella to notice she hadn't returned and come looking for her. And Bailey's first sentence of all her stories was, "Flora, my life is ruined." Flora shuddered instinctively. Bailey's story went in one ear and out the other. Flora scanned the bottles and snacks on the shelf, occasionally picking up a bag to inspect. It turned out Bailey wasn't just reminiscing. Just like Flora held grudges against her, Bailey also harbored resentment toward Flora. How funny. What did she have to resent about Flora? "Flora," she said, "you won. The day you ran away from home, I knew you'd won. I used to wonder why I wasn't my aunt's daughter. She clearly loved me, and I liked her so much too. At first, I didn't intend to take away the motherly love that belonged to you. You said I was pretending to be pitiful, but what else could I do? I was living under someone else's roof, only capable of hoping for a little sympathy from them." Flora suddenly remembered the afternoon she'd asked Bella to come as her parent for the meeting. That afternoon, Bailey stood there, watching Flora lay bare her difficult past. How similar it was to today. Only this time, it was Bailey bearing her soul. "I don't understand why. No matter how much I tried to win over your parents, their hearts were still with you." Bailey's voice grew more agitated. Flora tried hard to think. When were her parents ever only focused on her? "You know, after you left the house, Aunt Jenny stopped caring about me. Uncle Brian and Aunt Jenny started fighting all the time. We had a good home. But because of you, it turned miserable. Aunt Jenny initially protected me, but 3 days after you left, she cleared out the study, telling me to move out and live there. She said it was your room and you would need it when you came back. 5 days after you left, when they couldn't find you anywhere, they decided to wait for you outside our school. The school didn't allow them in, so they waited at the gate. My classmates saw Aunt Jenny and Uncle Brian and asked me why my parents were waiting at the school gate not acknowledging me. Do you know how I got through those days?" Flora didn't know about Bailey's struggles, but remembered her own. Those days she was studying in Bella's little room. When the cold made her hands freeze, she hid them under the covers, only pulling them out for 10 minutes of homework before quickly tucking them back in. On the 8th day after you'd gone, you finally showed at the school gate. I thought things would be normal again. That Aunt Jenny and Uncle Brian would go back to being themselves. But Flora knew what happened next. She refused to go home with Jennifer and the others, determined instead to demand child support from them. Flora asked for quite a bit of money. Almost every time Matt got paid, Flora would take a slice of it. Because of that, Matt ended up giving less money to Jennifer and spending less on Bailey. Flora had heard that Matt eventually cut off Bailey's art classes. Bailey no longer took piano or dance classes. From what Flora heard, Bailey complained about it to her classmates. Flora didn't expect Bailey to be this resentful. Bailey said, "They said they were saving for your college tuition, but did they ever think about me? I'm not as good in my studies as you. If I want to get into a good high school or college, I need to be a specialty student. But they stopped my art classes in junior high. Do they know what that means? If they're not going to take proper care of me, why bother adopting me in the first place? Why give me everything and then take it away? What do you mean give an inch, take a mile?" Flora asked. "So they didn't just cut your art classes, but also your education path?" Bailey fell silent. Flora knew her parents weren't the best. Not to her or to Bailey, but she felt Bailey had no right to complain. Her parents treated her better than their own daughter. They didn't provide Flora with as many privileges. So, why should they continue supporting Bailey's art? "Are you their biological daughter? Did you save their lives?" Flora said. "Flora," Bailey shouted, frustrated. Her husband, who was playing cards outside, glanced in to see what was happening before returning to his game. Flora was bored taking pictures of the shelves. "If they weren't going to be responsible for me, why did they adopt me?" Bailey continued, "After you left, everything was about you. I've compromised so much. But they got mad when my grades slipped. They said if it were you, you'd just work harder. Why should I be compared to you? You someone they don't even like." Bailey wanted to provoke some kind of anger or sadness in Flora, but Flora just saw her like a clown now. "I kinda already know what you've been through," Flora said. Sure, Flora cut ties with her parents, but not with her past friends and classmates. People knew her story and shared it with her. Flora didn't do well in her high school entrance exam. Maybe Bailey got influenced by this too, barely scraping into a vocational school. Bailey even asked their mom to sign her up for dance or piano classes again, hoping to switch to a college prep class. But Matt was about to lose his job, and there wasn't much money to spare. Exam prep for arts is way more expensive than normal tutoring anyway. When Flora went to get money, her dad was always sighing. Bailey put all her hopes on their mom, but before any decisions were made, Bailey started dating. This is why people say kids need lots of love. If you don't give them enough, don't be surprised when they seek it elsewhere. This was true for Flora and true for Bailey. That boyfriend led Bailey into all sorts of wild activities, racing cars at night, hanging out at internet cafes, meeting all kinds of people. Bailey's view was skewed. She said since Flora left, their parents only focused on reconciling with Flora. But according to Flora's sources, their parents actually tried hard to address Bailey's relationship issues. Flora heard they met with Bailey's teachers a few times to discuss it. She didn't know the details, but it couldn't have been as dramatic as her own story. Despite their efforts, Bailey had a huge fight with them. She felt they were irresponsible, especially after her mom refused to enroll her in classes. So, she and her boyfriend decided she'd drop out and work at an electronics factory for a year. She wanted to earn money and chase her own dreams. Flora thought if only Bella had heard about this, she'd laugh herself silly. Their parents ended up feeling disappointed. They tried to reach out to Bailey, hoping to save the situation. But whether it was Flora's departure or just losing faith in them, Bailey was done. She left to work down south. But dreams are big. Reality is not. Working, she thought she'd save up for her dreams. Once in the real world, she found out how quickly dreams fade. A lot of people think they'll earn money and then chase their dreams. But not everyone is like Bella. At 18, their parents gave up on Bailey and sent her back to her grandma. But by then, Bailey didn't care about getting ditched by them. She dropped out of high school, worked in a factory for a year. At 19, she moved in with her then-boyfriend. Just like Flora never went back, Bailey never did either. The following year, her boyfriend went away to work. She focused on her studies, but halfway through, needing more money, she packed up and left to work again. In her third year, she got pregnant. They hastily got married, Bailey wanting their parents to attend as her family's representatives. But they showed up only as distant relatives. There were some good takeaways. Flora said, "You chose someone yourself, and you're still with him." While saying this, Flora glanced at the man playing mahjong outside. Bailey let out a crying, laughing sound. She had fought for another possibility at some point. Whether she's happy or not now, only she knows. Flora thought out of all of them, none probably got what they truly wanted. She spent her childhood chasing her parents' love in vain. Parents put so much effort into raising their kids, yet some never appreciate it. And the one who gets all the love, once that love is taken away, ends up living a rough life. Flora looked at the approaching Bella and her husband, along with her own husband. As expected, they came to get her when she was taking too long. Thankfully, she got out in time. Flora headed out to meet the three of them, but Bailey even chased her to the door. "Your mom got sick a year ago. I took care of her, but all she did was favor you. She was so afraid that after she died, I'd fight you for the inheritance. She even left a will, saying everything goes to you. I just had my second child then. I was desperate for money. I was so stressed I couldn't sleep all night. But them? They saved up money for your dowry, not caring about me at all. And you, where were you then? She never cared about me." The poker-playing man finally felt something. He stood up and asked Bailey, "Who's that? Our sister?" But Flora didn't stop walking. Even after hearing about her mom's illness, she kept going. Even after hearing all the inheritance was meant for her, she didn't stop. She just kept walking towards her real family. They got in the car, shut the door, and drove off. Nobody said a word on the drive until Bella broke the silence. "Flora, was that Bailey?" Flora nodded. Bella clearly heard what Bailey said. After a pause, she said, "Maybe Flora's parents really know they were wrong. Wherever the money is, that's where the love is." Flora closed her eyes. "You don't get it either. It's not that they realize they were wrong. They're just old, scared I'll treat them the way they treated me. They're more scared of me abandoning them, leaving them with no support in their old age. If they could have another kid, and if Bailey were obedient and nice, they'd have no regrets." As she spoke, Flora lowered her head and started fiddling with her phone. Bella asked what she was doing. "Looking up the number for the business bureau. I saw 2 bags of expired snacks on Bailey's shelves, thinking of reporting it." Brian was shocked. "Really? She's already having a rough time." But Flora thought, what does her rough time have to do with me? Did I make her life this way? Did I give her this life? She dialed the business bureau. "Yeah, I just bought stuff from that little store. I want to report it, asking for compensation." "Yes, I heard it's triple the amount, or at least $1,000, so make it 1,000. After they promised a thorough investigation, Flora hung up. "We probably won't cross paths again, but in this one encounter, I don't mind adding insult to injury."